God bless everybody today. It is October 12th of 2023. I wanted to bring this article up real quick because it's relevant to Daniel 8 and how Turkey is going to enter this conflict soon. As you're seeing, Israel is now on a 2 or 3 front war between Hamas and Hezbollah. And I'll show you some maps on that in a minute. But let's look at this real quick because I want you to understand. Turkey is escalating their attacks on the Kurds in northeastern Syria. And this is extremely important, okay? This is going to be a game changer in the Middle East. This report just came out on October 11th. Turkey is moving on this. He's not going to wait for NATO and the EU to figure this out. And I doubt if he's going to get his F-16s now. So here you go. And it hasn't really been that quiet because we've shown you the reports. But after several months of Turkish-Syria border with sporadic assassinations by Turkey of People Protection Units, or the YPG, leaders linked to the Kurdish Workers' Party, PKK, tensions have escalated in recent days. Turkish forces have intensified their attacks against the Syrian Democratic Forces in northeastern Syria and targeted PKK hideouts along the Turkish Iraqi border because they're going to go into Syria and Iraq. But the main incursion is going to be in Syria because that will take him into Lebanon, which is important because he's extremely concerned about the safety of the Temple Mount, and you can see that in a number of reports that he's brought out here lately. This escalation is unfolding against the backdrop of a suicide blast in Turkey, Ankara, on October 1st, and I talked about that, and then he retaliated, and then this was all in the middle of the September 18th to October 9th gap that I've been talking about. Okay, all this was going on along with what was going on with Israel. It's not just Israel. You've got to be watching the Turkey and the Kurds, okay? Because Turkey's going to be the next prong attack that comes into Syria and complicates the whole Middle East and Israel's situation as we move forward. The Turkish government has claimed that the two attacks were PKK members who had entered the country from Syria, while the PKK announced that they were affiliated with this brigade. I can't say that if I wanted to. And that one of them set off a bomb strapped to his body, and I talked about that. So, and this is another point. So he's arrested over 2,200, 2,300 people in this process of trying to deal with these two bombs that had gone off. That's pretty amazing that 2,200 people have basically gone to jail over supposedly two random guys blowing themselves up. So they're probably going after this brigade, and they're cleaning out the Kurds and any opposition as he's getting ready to go in for an invasion. So you've got this brigade, according to the PKK, carried out the attack, had never conducted armed operations inside Turkey before, and so this is a first-time event. This is going to shock Turkey. It also happened in their capital, so that's going to hit them right in the heart. The brigades consist of several sleeper cells affiliated with the PKK that act as reserve forces, according to previous statements by party leaders. PKK leader, and I'm not going to say his name, first revealed the brigade's presence in 2016 during a press conference, stating that it is fully prepared and willing to carry out sacrificial actions when necessary. Okay, so the Kurds know Turkey's coming in. Okay, you've got to realize they're on the ground. They understand all this. The Ankara blast is the first operation the PKK has carried out since it declared in June the end of its February 6th unilateral ceasefire following the devastating earthquake that hit northern Turkey and northern Syria. So you sort of had this ceasefire back in February 6th, but that's unraveling, and of course Erdogan is bombing their fronts pretty heavily, and so that ceasefire has been gone for some time. And so this was the first action on October 1st that the PKK has really unleashed, and it was actually inside. So this is going to ramp up on the Kurd side because Turkey's literally hammering them. So they're not going to just stand there and hope that he genocides them into the ground. They're going to do something about this. And that's why I keep saying, when Turkey comes down into Syria, you're going to see a counteroffensive by the Kurds, which will fail, which will then force them to drop to the east to Baghdad and then shush before this is done, which will then be the Daniel 8 prophecy. Hours after the Ankara blast, Turkish officials promised to retaliate by striking PKK targets in Syria and Iraq, and they have been. They've been beating them to death. Turkey then carried out 20 airstrikes against PKK targets in northern Iraq. Turkish foreign minister issued a statement in which he said that his country would target PKK structures in Syria and Iraq. So they originally, in this verse, and you're going to sort of see that as we move forward, originally they started just targeting certain people or groups or, softer targets, but now they're going actually against insulation and hard targets in the second portion of this offensive. And you're going to see that he's moving into the second phase, and I talked about that. He just finished his first phase the other day. He's getting ready to move into a second phase, and that is going to be a lot more bombing in infrastructure, oil fields, hard targets, anything that they think is going to be a threat to Turkey in general is going to get hit. Okay. He said in a statement, which he had said that his country would target these PKK structures in Syria and Iraq, adding that all PKK and YPG structures and facilities in the two countries were legitimate targets. So they don't care about the Iraqi government, Assad, Russia, any of that. It doesn't matter to them because they're concerned about their safety, and this organization they believe is called a terrorist group called the Kurds. And if you look at what they've been doing, they've been genociding these Kurds for a long time. So, talking about war crimes, I don't know all the geopolitical, but, the Kurds have coexisted with a lot of groups for a long time. There's a lot of them in Turkey, and this dictator Erdogan seems to not be extremely happy about them being there, and so he is going to eliminate this problem if possible. But following this guy's statement, the first strikes were carried out in the Syrian city of Haskaha. I'm going to say that terribly. Turkish intelligence announced the bombing of a car carrying a leader. And then, and that's what I mean. They've been doing these basic bombings on specific people. Looks like a few hours later, they launched a Turkish drone bomb brick factory, and they also bombed a few SDF military bases and different things like that. On the morning of October 5th, okay, so we're getting into that close to that, and you got to understand this is getting ready to break out in Israel too. This is all happening at one time, and it's going to be a nightmare before we're done. On October 5th, Turkey intensified its airstrikes and drone stacks in several areas in northern and northeastern Syria. See, he's targeting these areas in Syria. He'll go to Iraq before he's done. Syria is his main goal right now, because he has to get to the Temple Mount. He's concerned about the safety of this Temple Mount. I posted a few articles about this on my web page and my Facebook pages, but A lot of people don't get to see those probably. But he confirmed that there were many military aircraft passing overhead with barely any time between flights. The airstrikes continued over the following days, targeting a total of 145 SDF locations in Syria. 145 locations on or around October 5th as we move forward. He's going to continue this. This is just starting. The Turkish airstrikes targeted many military headquarters, vital facilities in all these different areas, oil refineries. Turkish warplanes launched airstrikes against these cities, military air bases, and additional SDF bases in these areas in the countryside. Like previous Turkish military operations, the current one came as a response, although there are several noteworthy, wow, that's a tough word, noteworthy changes in terms of Ankara's military and operational strategies this time around. So the first phase was related to geopolitical or geographical scope of operations, which were basically the past few years. Okay, so this first phase has been going on for a while. He's getting ready to do his second phase, which potentially could be a land invasion based on what he's doing, because he's hitting hard targets to soften them up. Just like Israel's doing this before they go into Gaza. They have to hit these targets first, soften them up, and then send their men in. And that's why they haven't done a land invasion. You know, Israel's in a mess because they've got a lot of hostages they have to deal with. Gaza is like the most dense packed city on the planet, with 2.5 million people in a small area. It's ridiculous. And so this is going to be an extremely harsh environment for Israel to go through, and it will take months, if not years, to go through these areas systematically and do this, because in other operations it's taken weeks or months to do it prior. They've never seen anything like this before. So the first is related to geographical scope, and it consists of military action consisting of precise and targeted attacks against leaders, limited geographical radius of no more than 10 kilometers from the border. And see, he wants a 30-mile buffer zone, so he's going to start going deeper and deeper and deeper to the point where he's going to just invade. And I don't know how soon that's going to happen. Soon. I'm pretty sure the Kurds aren't going to tolerate some of this before long. These actions are also coordinated with the global coalition to defeat ISIS and Russia. To defeat ISIS and Russia. Should I say that a third time? Defeat ISIS and Russia. They're not a friend of Russia. If you think Turkey's going to align with Russia, or Russia's going to be Gog of Magog, and somehow the global Muslim community is going to follow a communist dictator named Putin, you are delusional. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it. You're delusional. Okay? And Erdogan, as I just posted in my last video, he's been working on building the Ottoman Empire, the Neo-Ottoman Empire, for over 20 plus years. And so now he's working with a coalition to coordinate attacks against ISIS and Russia. Rosh really doesn't play an important part here because it doesn't exist in the Bible. I'm sorry. Go look in the old Bibles. It doesn't exist. As Turkey has had coordination and collaboration between these, with both of these parties since Operation Peace Spring in, wow, October 9th of 2019, which is when the White Horseman was originally released on Yom Kippur, on my birthday of all things. I hate that saying that because I hate bad things happen on my birthday, but my birthday falls on Yom Kippur a lot. And we seem to have a lot of Yom Kippur wars going on in my world. So just saying, I'm not special, and my birthday just falls on a specific date that tends to have a bad connotation to Israel. That's terrible. Sometimes I wish I could have a different birthday. This time, however, the military operation was much different. So now they're moving into a secondary phase, which you're going to see down here, okay? Both in terms of its geographical scale and the nature of its targets. Several airstrikes were conducted near these cities, about 70 kilometers from the Turkish border. Well, not 10 kilometers, 70 kilometers, 70 miles in. So they're not even really talking about a 30-mile buffer zone no more at this point. Turkey's getting ready to soften up the whole front so he can bring his army in. The area of operations was also expanded to include territories controlled about the. Now, I'm going to go into this real quick. This anonymous administration of North and Eastern Syria, because you just need to understand what that is. And I don't know much about this, so I'm just going to show you this real quick, just so you can get a feel for what this is. It's a political organization, it's de facto, it's in a specific region, it consists of self-governing sub-regions and areas in all these areas, which are Kurdish, and so you need to realize it has to deal with the wider Syrian civil war, but realize they're not happy with this, this setup, basically. And then I get a little more time, I might go in and actually try to understand these organizations better. But there's so much going on, and there's so many different groups and different things over here. I'm not sure you could keep track of them all. Even if you tried, it would be a process, and I don't have that kind of time. So I do my best to report these things as best as I can, and things are moving quickly, so you need to understand that. The video shared by Turkish Minister of Defense showed warplanes carrying out night raids against SDF, or Syrian Defense Forces targets in these areas. The second turning point is in this current military operation is the fact that Turkish targets are no longer limited to leaders affiliated with PKK or those who are loyal to it in itself, the SDF. Rather, Ankara's strategy going forward is to strike oil infrastructure, including oil fields, refineries, and additional power plants, weapon depots, military camps. Wow, it doesn't look like he's getting ready to go to war. Doesn't look like he's getting ready to invade. I'm just throwing it down. Look, no one's talking Daniel 8. They're just not. You are within weeks of, if not days, of Erdogan walking into this country and changing the whole Middle East. I'm going to show you in a minute how that's going to happen. But if you do not see what he's doing, he's softening up his fronts. Just like any war. They hammer the fronts and then they send their armor and their guys in, okay? He's hitting everything, administration and financial headquarters. The purpose of this strategy is to dry up the PKK sources of funding in Syria, which are controlled by the Syrian Defense Forces. The third development, it's a multi-tiered plan that Turkey has here, is that Turkey is attempting to set up new rules of engagement. And I talked about this. He wants F-16s and stuff. He's trying to set up the stage for his invasion, okay? So he's going to set up new rules of engagement that are not agreed upon with other forces present in the region. Of course, we're not going to go with this. Israel's not going to go with this. Russia's not going to tolerate this. Syria and Iraq are not going to be happy, and Turkey doesn't care. Well, do you think Lebanon's going to be real happy when they come marching through there into Israel? This is going to get really stupid fast. So the third development is attempting to set up rules of engagement with that he doesn't really care about the other forces in the region. Wow, he just doesn't agree with them. He doesn't care. He's not part of his Ottoman um, dream of resetting the Neo-Ottoman Empire up in, you know, at the end of this year. And it says especially us. So he came out just the other day and was complaining about those two war group aircraft carrier. Wow, I can't speak tonight. My dyslexia is terrible. My aircraft carrier groups that are going over there right now, and he's complaining about that because he knows that they're going to start hammering the Palestine people. And you got to realize he's the leader of the Muslim area. He's concerned about the Palestine people. He doesn't care about Israel. He cares about Palestine. So why would he go down into Gaza? To get rid of Israel and protect those people down there. And they had that F-16 shot down on October 5th. So much going on October 5th, October 9th when Israel got attacked. I'm talking about this on my paradigm, how this was going to lead up between September 18th and October 9th. That this was really going to start ramping up, and it's going to. Israel is not even started yet, and they are going to send in a massive incursion ground force into Gaza because they have no choice. They have to eliminate this problem, and at the same time they're going to get smacked by Hezbollah in the east and the north, and then Turkey's going to come in and compress this, and I'll show you on the maps in a minute how that's going to work. So this Turkey operation comes at a difficult time, and it's because of this military wing and all this problem in the government. So all these things are happening. They've been regularly under attack by tribal fighters since August. These tensions are due to the recent events in the northeast Syria, where tribes are demanding independence, self-administration, and ousting the PKK leaders in the area. So there's internal conflict going against the Kurds, and so that's going to, because there's Arab groups and others in these areas, and so these people are trying to fill vacuums. Power struggles are literally occurring on the ground, and so we need to see that. And that's what I mean. You can't, I mean, I suppose if you had time and that was your job as a follow Middle East craziness, that you could go in and find all these groups, know exactly where they are, see how they, move, and each of them are attacking each other and different things like that. I don't have that kind of time. So I'm just trying to show you what's going on out here. This is also why the SDF respond to the Turkish operation was timid, as it was only mobilized in this Apollo area. It wasn't full scale, targeting a Turkish base near this area, and so they were just hitting back a little bit, but Turkey's going to come in with force, and so they're going to have to figure out how to deal with that. It says local residents, including many Kurds, were growing increasingly dissatisfied with this political organization, especially due to its relationship with the PKK. So the Kurds aren't happy with their government and the PKK, and so they're sort of like Iran. They're having internal strife, demonstrations, all kinds of things going on over there. Those trained in its headquarters in the mountains of Kurdistan in northern Iraq, many of whom are present in Syria, are behind the instances on the security solution of the problems, as well as the Ankara suicide attack. And so they're linking all these groups together, and so that's why Turkey's not happy. And so these policies do not serve the region or the interests of this political organization. Instead, they provide the justification for Turkish military operations inside Syria and fuel tensions with the Arab tribes in these areas. So I want to let's look at this last paragraph real quick, and I want to go to a real quick to the maps. I want to show you what's going to happen here, at least in my opinion. So we're having all these current operations. This is especially true. Let's see. It says Ankara blast put pressure on this government to take clear stance and distance themselves from the PKK. So Erdogan's literally dividing the Kurds when all this is happening, because the government is starting to break down and the population's not happy with them, and then he's going to come in the back door in the middle of the confusion, which makes sense. You know, you would take advantage of every possible thing that you could to break them down before you actually take them out. This is especially true given the explicit positions and major actors in eastern Syria, including the global coalition towards the PKK. They have condemned the latter's treatment of the local population and its attempt to destabilize the region and turn it into a battleground with Turkey, with no regard to 3 million civilized or civilian inhabitants. So, and that's what I mean. You go to Gaza, there's like 2.5, 2.6 million people. You get in these areas here, there's 3 million people. The people in Gaza that are trying to escape are going to have to go to Egypt. But the Kurds don't have anywhere to go because the Assad regime and the Iraqi regimes really are going to hold them up towards the north. And they're going to funnel them to the east, and then they'll drop down to Baghdad and Shush, as it shows us in Alexander's time. They're going to end up in Erbil, which is Gaugamela in the history books, in the Battle of Alexander the Great. That failed tremendously for the Kurds. In Erbil, we also have a green zone, so we need to be concerned about that also. So let's go look at the maps real quick, and I want to show you just how this is happening out here. And some of these areas might have changed because this map may be a few years older, but I think it gives you the basic premise of what I'm trying to show you. So right now you have this group of 2.5, 2.6 million people living in Gaza. Israel has been attacked in multiple locations from Gaza. Okay, Israel's getting ready to go in. They're going to have to break this into sections and literally go through this highly dense, populated area where these terrorists are literally camouflaging themselves as civilians. Is going to be an extremely intense process. Now, on the northern and eastern border, which would be controlled by Hezbollah in Lebanon, Golan Heights, and the West Bank, and I think it's important you see where these areas are so you can get a better visual picture of what's going on in Israel at the same time. You'll see that they are now launching attacks in from here. So you've got the south already started. Israel's going to send 100,000 guys in here. That's just saying that sounds crazy. They got 100,000 guys going to hit this front here, and they got 100,000 guys going to hit this front. And then what's going to happen? Turkey's going to come into Syria from Syria into Lebanon, and they're going to run through this place. They're actually going to run down, and it makes sense. So he comes from Syria down into Lebanon to Tyre. He starts taking these areas out here. Acts like he's a friend of Israel because they're in dire straits at this point. Ends up in Gaza to help his people. And actually, by the time he gets down into here, is he actually a friend of the Muslims, or is he a friend of Israel at that point? Because now he's invaded Israel at this point. So will his hat change? Because he originally came down to help Israel, but he's not coming to help Israel. He's going to come down and eliminate these areas. And the thing is, he's going to collect these groups, okay? And they're going to join him. He's going to end up in Gaza. He's going to end up in Egypt. Egypt's going to capitulate. He's going to come back up here, end up in Tyre, and then he's going to go to Gog or Erbil, where Gog Mellah is, and drive the Kurds to the east. Because when he comes down from Syria into Lebanon, they're going to try this counterattack, which fails, and then they fall off to the east. And then he's going to come back and deal with that problem over time, because Iran has to be absorbed into Ezekiel 38 and 39 next. Once Iran falls, you would see Daniel 8 complete, and then move into Ezekiel 38 and 39. So you have three phases that are happening here. Gaza hit first. Israel's going to come in soon with a land invasion. Now you have these groups hitting. Israel's going to have to deal with them. And then Turkey's going to come in and compress this whole area. And they are a real nightmare because they're the second largest army in NATO, and they have drones and tanks and all kinds of stuff over here in the sea because they're, right above, the north of Israel. And I always tell people, they want to say Moscow is north of Israel. No, it's not. Polar north of Israel runs through Ankara because you have a curve to the earth. Okay, it's not straight north. You go walk at polar north from Jerusalem, it runs right through Ankara. So when they say, oh, it's from the northern parts and it's a Russian thing, you got to look at them and go, you don't get it. And the other thing is, when you go to the Caucasus Mountains, that's a natural barrier between Russia and this area, between Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia. And let's go look at that real quick, just because you need to understand this. So when you get into this area, you have this mountain range that's, even the Muslims, if you see pictures of it, you would understand why. And so you need to go Google these mountains and understand that the Caucasus Mountains, it's spelled Caucasus Mountains, is a impassable barrier. It's impenetrable. It's almost no one could really take a land force over this. So for Russia to get even over here would be insane. And look, it's the last real portion of the Middle East is Azerbaijan, Armenia, and a little bit of Georgia, which is really interesting because that's important to Erdogan. And actually, the Ulai River, I believe, starts up in here, which is amazing because that's part of the Daniel 8 prophecy. So you have this impenetrable mountain range, and I mean, you go look at it, it is sheer cliffs. There's no way. There's like one little spot you can get through it. Yes, I've heard airplanes can get over the top of it. I get it, but you can't do a ground invasion by that. And then if you actually go out and look, and we talked about this the other day when Erdogan was doing his little speech in my last video, that he wanted to control this, and this. Okay. Why? Because it's extremely important. He's going to block this northern barrier off. That's why he's been genociding the Armenians up here, because it's important. So realize there's this huge mountain range and like I say, go Google it, check it out. It's really cool. I even did a video about it some years back, and did a lot of this guy that works in the Quran, and I wanted to give you that angle of it, that even they believe that they didn't know these people. That happened over time, and you can see that pass right there. But over time, they started to move up into these areas, and so then everybody's like, well, that's where they ended up, and so it must be a European thing. Look, Daniel and his people didn't know anything about this stuff at that time. They were concerned about the Middle East and this area down here around Iran, Iraq, Syria, Turkey, up into here, Turkmenistan, you got Afghanistan over here, all these areas down in here in Egypt. And then you have this natural border here, which locks them off from Russia. And so they didn't really know these people until later. And so that's extremely important. But when you go into this area down here, Gaza is going to be affected first. The northern part of the West Bank, Golan Heights, and Lebanon are going to be affected. Then the second wave, and then Turkey's going to come down into Syria, and they're going to end up in Egypt, back in Tyre. They're going to come all the way over to Erbil. They're going to force them to drop them down to Baghdad, and then they're going to end up in Shush, Iran, which is where Daniel 8 tells you they're going to end up. When the Kurds line up with Iran after they've been forced down into this area, that will cause them to align with Iran, and then we will see Turkey smash them. Because if you come in to look at Turkey, they're bombing this whole area. They control this area up in here. The Kurdish people are along this western side, and so when they full drop down and then are pushed into this area, Turkey will come over and they'll just crush them from Tyre. Okay, it's that simple. They'll come over from Tyre, hit Erbil, drop them down to Baghdad, force them to join up with the Iranians, and then they'll crush them once that alignment happens. Daniel completely explains this, and then when you go into Daniel 10, it actually fortifies this prophecy because he tells you that Michael's going against them. And when he means Michael, he's talking about Israel, okay? And Michael's with them, but when Michael goes forward, it's because Israel's going forward with them, and it doesn't always work out so well. And so, like he says in Daniel 10, once Israel fails, and Michael goes forward, he brings in the king of Greece or Turkey. And that makes sense because the Grecian armies came down into Turkey, into Lydia, and then into Syria. And the Roman Empire was moved from over here to Constantinople, Turkey, and then was divided, and then was destroyed by the Ottomans, which then allowed Islam to spread into Europe. Wow, it's really not that hard to understand, guys. You really need to understand that Turkey's going to play a pivotal role in what's coming up. This guy has for a long time been genociding these Kurds. But now he's getting ready to leave the EU. He's not going to get his weapons of war, and he's not getting his way. And now he's ramping up second and third phases into his attacks on the Kurds, which is going to change quickly because he's watching Israel under siege, and he will not allow anything to happen to that Temple Mount. I've showed you many, many times in my articles, especially in that one about him wanting to bring up the Neo-Ottoman Empire in the last 20, 25 years, that he wants to protect this holiest site, God's seat, because they even understand that the third temple has to be built, and they're looking at a different God named Allah, which isn't even a God. I don't know what he is. But regardless, God with a little g, maybe, if you want to say it that way. I don't know. They'd say it that way in the Bible, so I'll go with that. But in our picture, it's a big G. Okay, big G. And that G, that capital G, is our Creator, our God, and that is the Father of Jesus, and that is the open door, and you need to find that door because this picture right here, this picture is going to change soon. And Erdogan, the white horseman, is going to bring basically a quarter of the world, let's see, quarter of the world, right about around in here, into war. That area right around in here, okay? And then you're going to see a decimation of a third of the world with trumpets right after he dies on the sixth seal. So get ready, because this one's going to get really intense and extremely crazy out here. And I know most people aren't quite ready for what's coming because they've never seen anything like this in the history of man. So even in the Egyptian time, they've not seen anything like this that's coming upon the world. So good luck. Be safe out there. Keep up with Turkey. You really need to understand that Erdogan is the catalyst that's going to bring the Middle East into war soon. And so if you understand that, you'll know what to look for. God bless. Have a great night. Be safe.